that came from. So I'm going to turn it over now to our next presenter, Kai Schneider. Kai's Senior Account Manager with BDC. He's been with BDC for the last 15 years. He resides in Kamloops, but he helps clients, business clients all throughout the area here, and yeah, with their commercial needs. All right, welcome, Kai.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. My presentation is based on financing side of the transaction, business succession transaction. So it's probably going to be much more riveting than tax, or not, depending on what you like. Anyway, so my name is Kai Schneider. I'm with the Business Development Bank of Canada. I've been with the BDC now going on I'll be in my 15th year now. And I do enjoy doing a lot of transactions for change of ownerships. Probably about 50% of my dealings are often to do with business transactions like that. So the BDC, we try to offer flexible financing for new projects or succession planning. And from both the owners and successors' perspective, financing a change of ownership is often the largest obstacle to a successful outcome, and it can literally make or break the deal. So, and we're talking about a lot of deals. So, as hundreds of thousands of business owners in Canada look to transition their businesses because they are baby boomers, so according to statistics, Canada, 60% of Canadian business owners are over 50. So that translates to 600,000 of Canada's 1.1 million businesses or entrepreneurs. So it's a large number. So planning is key to differentiate your business from another. So succession planning, who do you want to sell to? So we look at, in the first steps of a successful business succession plan, we look at what is best suited for your needs as a business seller. And here are the most common exit strategies for the entrepreneur who wants to put their small business up for sale. So the first is passing the business on to a successor. In this case, the successor can be a family member or a manager in the company. The advantages of this are that it reduces third-party involvement, and it gives you the possibility to maintain involvement and influence the business going forward. Some disadvantages are that it can be difficult to identify the right and train the right successor. The potential for conflict within the work and or family is an issue. And the first step in choosing this option is to ensure that you identify the ideal profile of the successor. Identify and evaluate the potential candidates using fair and measurable criteria. The second option is transferring ownership through a management or employee buyout. Here, the management team or group of employees pool their resources to acquire all or part of the company. This is one of the best options for owners who don't have a candidate for succession and who want to preserve the corporate culture of the business. Advantages of this are that limited due diligence is typically required. The manager and management team already know the company. It rewards management for their long-term support of the business, and it protects the legacy and business independence. Disadvantages include management often has limited access to capital, which can affect the price and the terms. So I'm talking about the buyers. They have often limited access to capital. Sometimes in this situation, a vendor take-back may be required, meaning the vendor would hold some paper on the transaction and get paid the balance at a later date. And failed attempts in these situations can create poor morale in the business or even affect the small business operations performance. Selling a business to a third party, this is the option of another business in town buying your business, another business in the country buying your business, or selling it to a private equity company. So now we'll talk about the sources of financing that come into a transaction. So money comes from three different directions. The first is the buyer's own investment, whether that be their equity, their cash that they've saved, love money, whatever it is. That's the equity going into the transaction. The second is the vendor financing, meaning just what I mentioned earlier, the vendor holds back some money and gets paid at a later date. They can often gain a return on that investment, though they would get an interest rate paid to them over the term. And the third is the external financing. So financing is extremely important in a transaction. A properly financed transaction means a higher value and, more importantly, more cash in the seller's pocket on closing day. So that can include less vendor financing and less risk to the seller. A well-structured financing package also means less pressure on the cash flow for the buyer and more money so he or she can invest in the future growth of the business, which is key for them as a buyer. So when looking at external financing, we look at secured and unsecured lending. In a secured transaction, it's secured by land and building or by equipment. And this offers longer amortization periods and typically lower interest rates. We also can offer financing that's unsecured, and that may be for a situation where a building or equipment is not included. You're just buying the cash flow that business has historically prepared or been able to produce. So it's an unsecured loan, and it's typical for goodwill, for example. So either of these are very viable options in a transaction, and often there's a combination of those two in the deal. So there may be a land and building or equipment piece, a loan attached to that, and an unsecured loan to make up the balance of the purchase price. So vendor financing can be required when the debt and the equity coming into the transaction is not enough to meet the actual purchase price. So in this situation, if the seller's open to it, vendor financing can actually be considered equity in the deal if it's positioned properly. So that can make it a much more favorable transaction to a bank and can increase the price. So now I'll talk about the seller's objectives, seller's financing objectives, which include maximizing the sale options and price, reducing vendor note exposure, and ensure future viability of the company to maintain legacy. Now the buyer's financing option objectives have a manageable debt burden, which is key, manage maximum repayment flexibility, and diversified financing sources. So business transactions are very highly emotional, especially for the seller. So having a win-win situation is key, and keeping a level head and open negotiations, I would recommend working very closely with the buyer. So now the seller's checklist, do's and don'ts when selling a business. So a change of ownership is a moment of profound change in the life of the business. This is why you need to plan for it. A transaction can take years to develop and put into action. So start talking about it and plan at least 2 years ahead. Waiting for the last minute, I would say, can be very costly. Maximize the value of your business. Convert personal goodwill into commercial assets for which the buyer will pay. This includes formalizing business processes and information systems. Focus on profits. A good retained earnings within a business, which is the portion of income that has not been distributed to the shareholders, tells buyers and banks that the business has been profitable over the long run and is healthy. Right, so and the last point there is increase sales and lower expenses. Keep a cool head. Number 3, keep a cool head. It's easy to become emotional. Line up the right financing early and expect delays and be patient. Change of ownerships take a long time. There's a lot of back and forth that go on, and I would just be prepared that it will take longer typically than you expect. If you're accepted an offer and you put 30 days as the term that they have to close their financing, that's likely going to be short. You may need to get an extension. Okay, so don'ts when selling a business. Don't choose the price, choose the buyer. Number two, don't make yourself irreplaceable. So develop repeatable and teachable processes and empower your people. If a business can't function without you, it will be hard to find a buyer. Don't rush things. This is the second most important moment of your life as an entrepreneur. The first one being starting the business. And you don't want to be in a hurry, as you may not realize the return that you want. Think of it as a partnership. Don't try to control the relationship with the investor or the lender. Work closely with your buyer. Finally, and the most important advice, don't do it on your own. Get advice. There are professionals like tax advisors, investment people, and brokers that can help you get the deal done, and typically you will have more money in your pocket at the end of the day. I'm just going to race through these. These are the buyers. This is the buyer's checklist. Just make sure you know what you're buying and look for the right fit. That's the most important thing I would say. When being a buyer, be patient. These are some don'ts that you want to do when you're buying. And this is, I think, something that I want to mention. This is something that a bank is going to ask you for, or through the buyer, it's going to require. So, why is business owner selling? How is the selling price established? Exactly what does the business include? Does it include equipment? Does it include land and building? A thoughtful and well-prepared purchase agreement is key for a banker. They look at that document, the first thing you look at is to see what's included in the deal, what are the terms and conditions associated, what's the negotiation. What's the investment in the project? Bank needs to see the buyer coming in with equity. If they don't have equity coming in, it's going to be a big problem. So hopefully you can find someone that has money, whether they take it out of a personal residence or something like that, have money coming into transactions. What is the experience that that person has in the industry? Do they have a business plan and financial statements that are prepared by a CPA are key. And that really is my presentation.
Copy. Under the dues for selling the business, you talked about getting the right financing.
Yes.
I've always thought of that as being the purchaser's role.
It is, but a seller can absolutely help point them in the right direction, right? So you want to make sure that that they're not spinning their wheels, right? So if you know someone that is able to do the transaction, a company that has done a lot of them, for example, you'd want to help them go in that direction instead of sending them out into the wild and trying to find the right one.
So could that person be coming to you or to BDC and
Yes.
get an indication as to receptivity?
Exactly. So what happens often is a seller may contact me and say, what kind of level of financing can we get here? I can talk to that seller up until a point. When it becomes a point where the buyer brings me the deal, or the buyer starts talking to me about that, my communication with the seller stops. Absolutely. Right? But before that, we can talk about structure. Yes. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay.